this is Paul Mackey with another Idjit's Thoughts on podcast. It's the day after Independence Day here in the U.S., and I hope everyone had a reasonably good time. All fingers and hands intact. In the UK, you're apparently moving to a Labour government, and I hope everyone has a reasonably good time. And minds their fingers. But for now, let's turn to the not terribly distant past of the mid-70s and look at the Rockford Files Season 1, Episode 16, Counter Gambit, originally aired January 24th, 1975. This was the mid-season shuffle for one of the networks. During this entire season on NBC, the Friday night lineup was stable. Sanford and Son, Chico and the Man, followed by the Rockford Files, then into Angie Dickinson's Policewoman. CBS had their Friday night movie against Rockford throughout the season as well. However, there was some shuffle-up in terms of what ABC ran against Rockford. They moved The $6 Million Man to Sunday nights, and an hour earlier as well. Against Rockford, they put up rookie sitcom Hot L Baltimore, a Norman Lear production starring Richard Mazer, Conchata Ferrell, and James Cromwell, followed by the waning episodes of The Odd Couple. That day of note, January 24th, 1975, no big news item this time, but as mentioned over on ABC, the sitcom Hot L Baltimore premiered. The number one song in the U.S. was Please Mr. Postman, as covered by the Carpenters, the original being the Marvelettes, coincidentally enough, a fact we were unable to pull at trivia this week. In the UK, the number one song was Ms. Grace by The Times, T-Y-M-E-S. According to Wikipedia, The Times were a Philly-based vocal group with equal success on both sides of the Atlantic earlier in their career. I had never heard of this song. Apparently, while it hit number one in the UK, it barely skimmed the bottom of the Billboard chart in the US. I couldn't find a movie's box office chart, but the number one film this week was Murder on the Orient Express, as directed by Sidney Lumet and starring Lauren Bacall, Ingrid Bergman, Sean Connery, and John Gielgud, among others. So for this episode, let's look at Counter Gambit brief summary. Rockford goes to San Quentin and speaks to Moss Williams. It seems his girl has gone silent, and Moss wants Jim to find out if she has a new guy so he won't find out the hard way and try killing him. Later, at his office, Rockford is visited by Moss Williams' attorney, who presents him with a photo of the girl in question. He also has a $500 cashier's check. Jim reluctantly agrees to take the job as long as he doesn't have to deal with Williams directly. Rockford finds her, indeed, with another man. Then Williams shows up at Jim's office and makes him drive to her place at gunpoint. The other man turns out to be ex-con Harry Crown, who Moss slaps around a bit, then talks to about Maria's whereabouts. It turns out she left without a trace that morning. Moss tells Jim he probably wouldn't have shot Crown, but Jim says he's done with the whole affair. Back at Jim's trailer, a man called Edgar Birch says he's an insurance investigator who is set to get a sizable reward for the return of a missing necklace worth $250,000 that his company paid out on when it was stolen by Moss Williams and Harry Crown. Edgar takes Rockford to his office, and between Jim, Edgar, and Edgar's boss, they hammer out a deal where Rockford would get half of the recovery fee. Then Rockford goes back to Crown and Williams, who say they already found her, but still agree Jim is better for approaching her than one of them. Jim begins a relationship with the woman now going by Valerie. He works out a way to get her to let him put a small lockbox in her personal safe. He uses a tape recorder from inside the safe to listen to the tumblers in action and work out a likely combo. On his next date, he verifies the combo is correct. Then he calls his police friend Becker and confirms they would only hold the actual necklace long enough for an appraisal if it were recovered, maybe a couple of weeks. He goes to Birch and says he's going to the police with the information, and Birch says the police would hold the necklace through a trial. Jim calls him on the obvious lie, but he is knocked out by Williams before anything else happens. After waking, Jim goes to the insurance office to find the company has vacated. It was never legit. He calls Rocky, who confirms the police are looking for him for the theft of the necklace. Williams and Crown have stolen it, planting evidence like his notes with the combination, so the police have Jim as the only suspect. Then it comes down to an appraisal needed before Williams can fence the pearls. Jim gets Valerie to help him, promising to achieve return of the pearls, and uses ex-con friend Angel, previously seen in the pilot episode, to fake an appraisal and say the necklace is fake. Angel goes to the bad guys and confesses to the scheme and begs mercy. They take the pearls to get appraised, and the genuine appraiser says they're fake. Angel insists Jim does not have the real ones. They figure that Valerie had made a fake, and that's what they've stolen. She gets to keep the real necklace and con the insurance company. They go back to swap for the real necklace. Angel's confession was a fake, and Jim also paid off the appraiser. The crooks unknowingly returned the real necklace and took a fake, which the fence they went to tells them, not too happily. Valerie calls Becker and tells him she misplaced the necklace, and clears Rockford, who kisses her, ending the episode.
This is Jim Rockford. At the tone, leave your name and message. I'll get back to you.
Jim, it's Jack. I'm at the airport. I'm going to Tokyo and want to pay you the $500 I owe you. Catch you next year when I get back.
Who is? Well, I know we will eventually come around to look at Stuart Margolin, who played Angel in both the pilot and this episode. Spoiler alert, he'll be appearing again. So, not this time. At the top of the show, I noticed Mary Fran, who played Bob Newhart's wife Joanna, on the Newhart sitcom in the 80s. I also recognized Eddie Fontaine playing Moss Williams here. He played a hard-nosed police lieutenant earlier in this season in the episode This Case is Closed. I am accustomed to shows using performers multiple times in different roles, but this might be the first time I've seen it inside a single season. When I heard the banging at Jim's door and then that voice calling, I knew we were getting M. Emmett Walsh as a guest star. I'm pretty sure he didn't even get a top-of-show credit. I know I would have taken notice. It's fun watching these older shows and catching a legendary character actor just plying their trade from a one-off appearance. M. Emmett Walsh was born in 1934 and raised in rural Vermont. He appeared in plays at Clarkson University while earning his B.A. in Business Administration and was advised there to move on to study drama, which he did at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York City. He appeared primarily on regional theater stages through the 1960s, eventually made his Broadway debut in 1969 alongside Al Pacino in Does a Tiger Wear a Necktie? About this time, he transitioned to the small and big screen with an uncredited role in Midnight Cowboy and a smattering of TV roles. He was in They Might Be Giants, not the seminal geek rock band, but rather the film they named themselves after. In the 70s, he had roles on TV in, among other shows, Julia, The Bob Newhart Show, Macmillan and Wife, The Waltons, and Starsky and Hutch, while on the big screen in Serpico, Slapshot, and The Jerk. The roles he's best known for come in 80s films: Blade Runner, Silkwood, Blood Simple, Fletch, Back to School, Raising Arizona, Harry and the Hendersons, and Clean and Sober. Again, these are just a few titles of the many he appeared in. He played Henry Allen in The Flash 1990 and Arthur Dales in the X-Files episode The Unnatural. He carried on playing character parts through the end of his career, more recently in the film Knives Out and the TV series The Righteous Gemstones. He was inducted into the Character Actor Hall of Fame in 2018 by his Blade Runner co-star Harrison Ford. Roger Ebert had an unofficial rule called the Stanton-Walsh Rule. Any film with either Harry Dean Stanton or M. Emmett Walsh in it was not entirely unredeemable. M. Emmett Walsh passed away on March 18th of this year at the age of 88. Totally 70s. The middle American norms being shocked by being able to attend a porno theater. Sure, Valerie is not middle American exactly, but you did see how unsure she was going in, how transfixed she appeared to be while being inside, and how uncomfortable she claimed to be afterwards. Artifactoids. San Quentin. I won't go into too much detail on San Quentin here, but I looked up images and verified they showed an exterior establishing shot of San Quentin and not just a generic prison-looking building. San Quentin was built in 1854. The initial 1854 prison became dungeons underneath more modern incarnations of the prison, and although they are no longer in use for prisoners, they do still exist. San Quentin has been the site of hangings, gas chamber, and lethal injection executions through all the various state and national changes back and forth on the legality of execution as punishment. Currently, San Quentin is California's only execution site and houses all male prisoners on death row. However, Governor Newsom put in place a moratorium on executions in 2019, so there are no executions scheduled or planned at this time. A report in 2005 found the prison to be antiquated, dirty, and understaffed with inadequate medical facilities, and 2 years later a new trauma center was constructed with a $175 million medical facility plan put in place. In March of last year, Governor Newsom put into effect a new plan focusing on inmate rehabilitation and education. With the new goals came the name change from San Quentin State Prison to San Quentin Rehabilitation Center. Johnny Cash famously played San Quentin twice. In 1958, inmate Merle Haggard was in the audience and was inspired to pursue music by the show. The second time was in 1969, released as an album and a television special. What worked? I liked this episode. I found myself unable to predict exactly how it would all wrap up. Moss Williams, with his hiring on of all the phony insurance company side players, kept the case interesting, along with Eddie Fontaine's skill at presenting menace on screen. Jim and Angel's counter-cons were very entertaining as well. What didn't work? I'm just on the edge of calling too many twists as the episode ended, and I confess checking the time remaining and pondering how they could wrap it all up. Next time is Season 1, Episode 17, entitled simply Claire. Happy hunting! You've been listening to the One Idjit's Thoughts On podcast, produced by Paul Mackey in association with Nimlas Studios. Any short clips of audio from shows is included under fair use for commentary purposes, and copyright for that content remains with its original copyright holders. The theme song is Too Good by Jack Mangan and is used by his generous permission. One Idjit's Thoughts is produced under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 International License. You can find more episodes of this podcast and many other fine podcasts at nimlas.org. You can contact me by emailing idjitcastpodcast@gmail.com or commenting on episodes at nimlas.org.
Let's make our own memories.
I understand a blue movie is expected to have wooden dialogue, but the one playing in this episode went above and beyond.